founder and managing director of NAFA Capital Advisors Private Limited, and a partner in UAP Advisors LLP. Mr. Ameya also serves as the managing director of New Age Financial Advisors. He has been designated as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum. He is also a writer and is well known as an author of a book of short stories titled as The Rock Babas and Other Stories, published by Amazon and sold in over 40 countries globally. He is a columnist, and his writings have been published by well-known global media outlets such as The Huffington Post, The Quint, Business Today, etc. I humbly request Dr. Suresh Ukrande, our Principal and Dean Faculty of Technology, SVU, to felicitate Mr. Ameya Prabhu with a memento as a token of our affection. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind gesture. I further request Professor Mohan Das to greet our Vice Chancellor, Shri V.N. Rajashekharan Pillai, for as a token of our affection.
Thank you very much.
Okay. With immense pleasure, I take this opportunity to call upon our keynote speaker, Mr. Ameya Prabhu, to deliver his keynote address. Sir.
Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon to all of you. I know that I stand between you and lunch, so I'll be brief because I know the morning session was a bit elongated. But at the outset, I thank Vice Chancellor Pillai and Professor Rao and all the organizers of the event, and from people from Bharat Tech Foundation, our friends from Geo Institute of Learning, who I spent some time talking to, and all of you for being here today and inviting me to speak. When I was driving into the campus, I'm ashamed to say that's the first time I've been here, even though I've born and brought up and spent my entire life in Mumbai. But I assure Vice Chancellor Pillai that while it is my first time, it's not my last, because I was amazed at how beautiful and green your campus is, an island of tranquility in the midst of Mumbai. So really, I believe the compere was saying how, as she as an alumnus of the university, when she came here, she had goosebumps and she did not know what to expect. But I must say, as someone who's come here for the first time as well, I think it was a really, you feel serene. And I think when you walk in, you see the greenery, you see and I'm a big believer in energy. President Somaya ji spoke earlier about starting every event with a Sanskrit shlok as a part of, or a speech in Sanskrit as a part of and unfortunately I do not speak Sanskrit, but but I think that creates good vibes, creates good energy. And when you mix serenity and good vibes with great professors and great teachers, I think that's what makes a great academic institution. So I think this is really a great place to learn. This is a great place to engage with. And coming in, I felt the great energy. So I am very happy to be here. I think I was asked to speak about sustainability and MSMEs. And I think, again, a great place to talk about sustainability is on a green campus like this, because it actually teaches you that even in an urban metropolis or a megapolis like Mumbai, we have the ability to have an island of serenity, an island of greenery, such as this beautiful campus that we are here. And currently, I also serve as the President of the Indian Chamber of Commerce. We are the oldest Chamber of Commerce in India, founded in 1925, and we had, of course, Subhash Chandra Bose ji, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose ji. We had Gandhi ji was our founding members, and over the years we have had several leading luminaries as the president. I am the first president from the western region and first president who is not a Marwadi or a Gujarati, incidentally, a Maharashtrian. So I'm very happy that I'm the first. Clearly means Maharashtrian. He's clapping loudly because, our Maharashtrians are not known to be as affluent in business. especially we are Saraswat, so we are known to give knowledge. So this is the right place for us to be. Usually we are here more than in the business community, but such a pleasure to be here. But that's how I met Vice Chancellor Pillai, and we had gone to Nepal together. And I think what was interesting for me is to understand the beauty of what this institution has created and built. And I think when you think of sustainability, and I think a lot of us, sustainability, ESG has become a big buzzword for a lot of people. But actually, I really liked what President Somayaji said about the values that we have. And if you think of Indian values or Bharatiya Sanskruti, or what we call it, actually that is the best example of sustainability. For example, while growing up, I remember you bought some new clothes. They started off as being new going out clothes, then they became ghar ke kapde. Eventually it became what you gave the staff at home to clean, So it went through that motion of each and everything. And that was actually recycled. In a way, if you think of it, in the way we lived, for example, I used to go to my native place in Malvan. My grandfather actually comes from Malvan. It's on the coast of Maharashtra. It's in Konkan. And I remember when I used to go, I used to love the fact that we had, we used to say, Shenani Saravlela Ghar, as in it was a floor which was made from cow dung. And if you actually think of it, very often people ask me, why do Hindus not eat beef? It's a very interesting question. Is it because of the fact that it's religious? And of course, it was imbibed in religion. But if you think of the cow gives you milk, which is food. The bull helps you till your farm, and the cow dung gives you fuel. The cow dung also gives you the flooring. So and again, it's cooling as well in a hot country like India. So from a sustainability point of view, the cow or the bull was probably one of the animals that gave you the most in terms of sustainability. So if you see the way we lived, for example, now a lot of us have showers. Growing up, a lot of us had, we used to have a bath from a bucket. That itself is sustainability. It limits the amount of water you have, for example. Even fasting. Now, a Japanese scientist won a Nobel Prize on intermittent fasting, which is basically what our Jain Munis have been doing for 2,000 years, if you actually ask me, or maybe 3,000 years. And even for all of our culture, fasting is a very important part. So if you see sustainability, if you actually think of what does sustainability mean, sustainability means that living with nature, living within nature, as President Somaya said, we are also a part of nature, living by keeping the least impact on nature, if we can live our life. I think that is what is the critical thing. Now, a lot of us talk about net zero. We want to be net zero by 2050. Some people say we want to be net zero by 2070. Now, 250 years ago, we were net zero. If you see, our population of, let's say, what is today India, or at that time undivided India, was maybe about a billion, or not in a billion, but maybe about 500 million at that time. And because we were not polluting, because we did not have factories, because we did not have cars, we did not have plastic, actually we lived in confluence with the environment, and we were net zero. So the way to go net zero is one of two options. Either we go back 250 years and live without electricity, live without polluting the environment, which, let's be honest, is not possible. Or we find a way to keep our level of development, keep our level of luxury, keep our level of comfort, and at the same time not pollute, not contribute negatively to the environment. And for this to be done, like very often people tell me that sustainability targets need to be met only by big companies, large companies. We as MSMEs, we cannot afford it, we cannot do it. Why should a poor person do it? But actually, when you have to think of sustainability, and of course, larger the company, larger the carbon footprint, larger the impact on the environment, greater the spending power, greater the carbon footprint, greater the impact on the environment. But ultimately, each and every person has to actually, because it's a way of life. As I said, it's Sanskriti. ESG is a part of your Sanskriti. So when each and every one of us comply to ESG, and it can be small things. ESG does not mean that all of us have to buy renewable power. Of course, if we choose to buy renewable power, that's great. But at the same time, it could also mean using public transport more. It could also mean using water better. For a MSME company, it could also mean, for example, figuring out how do I optimize my supply chain. Today you have suppliers who give you ESG products. It can also mean, on the social side, employing people from various backgrounds. Maybe there are certain, like in ITC today, they employ people who have hearing disability as bellboys, because you don't need a bellboy or a bell lady who is in the office who has ability to hear. you have a lot of institutions today which are employing transgender people, because at the same time there are a lot of jobs which they can do. There are institutions today which are employing people who are blind, because I have a very dear friend of mine, I saw him last night, he's got hearing, sight disability, but he's a trader. He's a trader he's a financial trader, one of the biggest financial traders in London. So there are a lot of skills, so that is part, and again, that's what our Sanskriti teaches us, to treat everybody equally. From a governance perspective, that means even for an MSME company, that means run your business better, pay your taxes, pay your GST, contribute towards the nation, contribute towards what you are giving. And of course, from an environmental perspective, that means utilizing water better. For example, today, I was in Bangalore last week. There is a water crisis going on in parts of Bangalore. Yet, there are people who are taking the pipe and washing their cars, without a concern. There are people who are not, for example, there are so many technologies today which can ensure zero water discharge, which can ensure, and of course, while that might cost a bit upfront, the actual cost over the duration of the life cycle is actually quite low, and there's a very decent payback. And again, the problem is government also has to start imposing some of these fines or some of the regulatory aspects of things. But that's also something that one can seriously look at. Again, going back to sustainability, why is sustainability important? Now, for a long time, as India, we used to have the climate change negotiations. I am also involved I'm on the board of Climate Group, which is a global climate think tank. We used to always say, and including I used to always say that, ultimately for the last 250 years, you guys polluted, UK polluted, US polluted, you put all the carbon in the air. A lot of you might have seen the video last week of the president of Guyana, who's also Indian origin, Irfan Ali, who had a tete-a-tete, I would say, with a BBC journalist who was saying, why are you going to put so many billion tons of carbon into the air? And he said that, we have the largest carbon sink in the forest, which is true. But at the same time, one thing which I have realized is climate change actually affects the poorest people the most. That's actually one of those ironic things of life, that the ones who did not pollute, the farmer in Ratnagiri who grows his mangoes, or say if you go to Champaran in Bihar, someone growing rice, or in south in Tamil Nadu in the Nilgiris, someone growing coffee, or in Punjab growing wheat. The changes in climate, the changes in rains, the changes in the seasons actually impact agriculture, which drives up the cost or which creates uncertainty. So this year we have a drought in Karnataka, last year we had floods. Few years ago, one year we had massive floods in Chennai, the next year we had a drought. So climate change is actually, global warming is the wrong word, climate change is the correct word. It actually means that there are massive changes in the environment, impact on the environment, which actually affects, unfortunately, the poorest people the most. It affects the farmers in the places I mentioned, it affects the people at entry-level jobs, because the people who are middle class and above, a lot of them, I'm sure a lot of your class will also go abroad to study, will move abroad and get jobs, so they have the ability to be upwardly mobile, or maybe even move from a hot village to a cool town, maybe in Siliguri or somewhere in the east. So you have the ability, the minute you are I would say lower middle income and above, you have the ability to be mobile economically. Anything below that, unfortunately, you are completely held hostage by the environment you are in. So unfortunately, the climate change impacts the poorest people the most, and hence India, Bharat, we have to contribute towards reducing our emissions, reducing our footprint, even though, and again, the reason why we have to do that is the next big growth which is going to come in the world is going to come from Africa. If you see the population projections for 2100, today we are around, our population is around 1.45 billion. In the best case situation, our population is projected to be of course, I will not be around in 2100, so I'm happy you heard that, but our projection is expected to be about 1.55 billion. Median case is going to be 1 billion. So actually our population will go down by almost 30%. The same projection for Japan or South Korea, for example. South Korea today is about 55 million. The projection for 2100, because their current replacement rate is 0.8 children per woman, is about it's about 27 million, half. the interesting thing is the top countries, of course, India will still be number one. China is expected to be half, from 1.4 billion to 750 million, could be even as low as 600 million. The interesting thing is the main growth, a country like Tanzania, or Nigeria today, which is about 180 million, is expected to be 470 million. A country like Congo, which is today 60 million, will be about 250 million. Even a country like Kenya or Tanzania, which is today 20 and 30 million, is expected to be 115 to 130 million people. So the big, huge growth rate in the world is going to come from Africa. And if you ask me, will the solutions for Africa be developed in Europe? I think Europe is unfortunately becoming a museum. You go to Europe for a nice holiday, you go there to see the past, but there's no innovation happening. United States, of course, is still the world's greatest economy, but has its own challenges, and they have never been known for low-cost innovation. Like it or not, the Chinese are going through their share of troubles. So I look at India, I look at our country, not only as a growth driver for our own country in terms of bringing, welfare, bringing economic growth for our country, but being an example for the global south, being an example for Africa, because if we solve the problem of climate change in India, we will solve it for Africa, we will solve it for the countries in the global south, in Latin America, and actually we have the ability to solve climate change for the world, because this is not going to happen with some high cost, very expensive solution which is developed in California or in Germany. This has to be innovated in startup. I believe there are some 1,500, 1,200 startups which you were telling me about, maybe more, I'm getting the number wrong, or which I think aap bata rahe the mujhe, Mohan, Professor Rao was telling me. And I think that is where the solutions will come. So I encourage you to be innovative. I encourage you to keep thinking bigger. As in my humble capacity, if I can be of any help, I'll always be available. All of them have my contact details. And again, ESG is for each and every one of us. We have our friends from Jio, so of course ESG is very important for Jio and for Reliance. But it is also important for a guy in Bhainder doing some auto parts. It's also important for a guy in Ghaziabad doing some metal work. It is because and it's also important for all of us, the way we live, because the sum total of our carbon footprint is the sum total of the carbon footprint of our country. So if all of us work towards sustainability in our own little way, I think we will be more sustainable as a nation. If we find solutions for sustainable living in our own little way, we can find solutions both for our country as well as for the global south. And together we can actually solve this issue of climate change. Together we can work and actually ensure going forward that we are more sustainable in terms of the way we live, the way we breed, the way we breathe, the way we exist. And I think that can really be a great future for all of us. Thank you so much for having me. And again, the man who stands between someone and their lunch is not a popular man, so I hope I've been brief. Thank you so much, and I look forward to engaging more with all of you. Thank you.
I do not want to make any chairman's remarks at this juncture. We are 1 hour late. I am extremely glad that there are great opportunities for academia, education institutions like this, industry and government R&D to collaborate. I think we look forward to recommendations, suggestions, and I do not know whether you would like to put some questions to Mr. Amaya Prabhu. Otherwise, I don't want to make a speech. Maybe 1 or 2 questions, very specifically. No, thank you. Probably you can interact. He has promised that he will be visiting the campus again and interacting with the startups, and also probably he will give specific recommendations from the Indian Chamber of Commerce also. Thank you very much for your enlightening address. Thank you very much for it.
Thank you, Mr. Prabhu, for your lively address. Your keynote address actually proved as a guiding lamp for this intellectual gathering. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pillai sir, for being the chair of the program. Thank you very much.
Do the panel now, then we will speak for lunch. Let's do the panel now because they want to finish in 15-20 minutes, and we go from there.
As per the flow, as decided.
Yes. So we extend, extend the flow.
Who's going to felicitate them by giving them at the
So
end?
we continue.
Who's going to felicitate them?
He can do it. He can felicitate.
Okay.
Let him do it. Yeah. All of them. Or will he say? No problem. We are all here. Okay. Make a request to the audience that we are continuing with the session. It will take not more than 30 minutes. Yeah?
Okay. So, dear audience, we are going as per the schedule, and it won't take more than 20 minutes for the panel discussion 1. So we now move onwards. One of the highlights of the conclave, the panel discussion 1, titled as Catalyzing Research and Development for MSME, Driving Viksit Bharat at 2047. I take this opportunity to introduce the eminent moderator as well as each of our esteemed panel members who are going to bring a unique perspective to the table. The moderator of this session is Dr. Raman Ramachandran, Director and Dean at K.J. Somaiya Institute of Management and Somaiya Vidya Vihar University. Dr. Raman Ramachandran retired as Chairman and Managing Director of BASF India Limited.
We will introduce ourselves very quickly.
Okay. Fine, we'll do. Fine. So, we are running short of time, so the dignitaries wish to introduce themselves. They have made my task easier. Thank you, sir. May I request you to please proceed with this session?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I know that we are standing between you and lunch. We'll try and make this as brief and as impactful and concise, insightful as possible. So as she started to introduce, I'm Raman Ramachandran, Dean and Director of the K.J. Somaiya Institute of Management. And before this, I was in the corporate world, spent 22 years with a company called BASF and ended as its MD. I will request each one of you to introduce. I'll just quickly set that context of our conversation and then hand over to you. You can introduce yourself and give your perspective on the topic, which is how do we catalyze R&D in MSMEs? What is the current status and some ideas that you may have based on your experience with MSME. So just to put the role of MSME in the Indian economy's context, MSMEs contribute about 30% to the GDP. There are about, the last data that I saw, 630 lakh MSMEs, but it has to be underscored that 99% of them are micro enterprises, where probably R&D is not a big topic anyway. So you have about 3.5 lakh companies which are in the medium and small scale industries. And I guess those are going to be the key topic. They are the ones who need to drive innovation. And why do they need to drive innovation? Because we know as we move from the 2.53 trillion to 5 and 10 trillion economy, this 6.5 lakh companies will play a major role because they are a big contributor not only directly to the economy but also in an indirect way because many of them are suppliers to major industries. So, and with all the demands on sustainability, carbon neutrality that you have been hearing from various speakers in the morning, if the MSMEs do not innovate, change and come up with newer technology, newer practices, we will probably not achieve our net zero goal of 2070. Yeah, so that's the critical reason why innovation has to be a very, very important topic for the MSMEs. And with that context, I'm just going to hand over to you first, sir, Mr. Chandani, Brief, if you could introduce yourself, your company, and your thoughts on the topic.
Thank you very much, and Dr. Rahul Mirchandani, the chairman of Aries Agro Limited. We are a company making specialty fertilizers. In fact, sustainability has been something that we've done proudly as an MSME when we started 55 years ago, and we continue to remain committed to being a supplier of inert, non-reactive fertilizers, and 9 million farmers have benefited from our technologies. Our technologies have been at the forefront of innovation in the agribusiness space since the 1960s, and even now we work on agri-tech, we work on drones, we work on soil scanning technologies, and several elements of AI and ML use in agribusiness. So there's a lot of innovation that is the bedrock of everything we do. In terms of your context of how do we catalyze MSMEs, I think, like I said, when we started as an MSME in 1969, we proudly brought non-reactive chelates to India, and that has remained something that we have pioneered ever since. So MSMEs actually, even today in our own ecosystem, drive a lot of our innovation. I'm going to give 2 examples of that. One is, of course, right now we work with a lot of incubators, a lot of places where innovation and technology in agri-tech is being created. Unfortunately, the market for these MSMEs, they don't have the scale to reach out to the market. We fortunately have that scale. So how we work is, we tell these MSMEs or these innovators, we tell them what the market problems are. And we tell them, here, I am ready with scale and market access, develop a solution for this particular pain point. We believe there are great minds out there in the incubators, but if they're given a specific problem where the market is already ready, then they are much more driving, they are much more driven in terms of delivering their technology. The most recent example being our soil scanning technology, which we brought from the IIT incubator in Kanpur. Basically, we've taken soil scanning as a critical pain point. Farmers used to go and wait several weeks for soil scanning, and that remains the basic element of providing sustainable nutrition, is to know what's wrong with your soil. Farmers used to have a lot of problem getting those soil scanning tech. We miniaturized that technology into something of the size of a mobile phone, having a small device which can provide that to the farmer at his doorstep in 3 minutes. This technology was done by IIT Kanpur with a pain point we developed, and now we are commercializing it for them. So I think it's one of the examples of trying to catalyze MSMEs for that. The second example, very quickly, is during COVID, it is the MSMEs who kept us running, because we made a lot of these MSMEs suppliers to us as essential services, and we allowed them to reopen their businesses. They did all the unskilled jobs for us, and we retained heavy manufacturing in our factories. They are the ones who kept large businesses running. So I think these are 2 examples of that I thought would be relevant to this audience.
I think made some great points. One is that made some great points. One about how large players can act as sources of defining the problem, and connecting that with incubation centers where you have startups, great minds thinking about it, and then being able to also scale it and take it out into the market. We'll come back and talk about some formal examples, or is this institutionalized, because I believe it is not, and how do we probably do that? Sir, you have a long banking background, so please introduce yourself and your perspective on MSME.
Thank you, Dr. Ramchandran. Big thanks to the organizers for having invited me for this August session and attending this. It was a pleasure hearing the earlier speakers speak, and one particular area which sort of touched upon by Mr. Ameya Prabhu was on ESG, which I'll speak. A quick introduction about myself. My name is Madhav Nair. I'm currently the country head and CEO for Bank of Bahrain and Kuwait. I've been a career banker for more than 3 decades. I am quite interested on the policy advocacy side, and I'm associated with the Indian Banks Association. In my current capacity, I'm the Honorary Secretary for the association. I just got elected last week. I'm also the chairman for the ESG Standing Committee and alternate chairman for the Legal Committee. So some aspects of this, what we do, are closely associated with the MSME. Now, why is MSME important? I think Dr. Ramachandran, when he started off, he gave some stats about 30% of our GDP is contributed by MSME. that itself is significant. And frankly, if we have to reach our immediate short-term goal of $5 trillion, that can happen only if this particular segment is nurtured by all of us. Now, like anyone, I think before we get into the whole process of the R&D or the innovation side, etc., I think it's critical to know what are the pain points of MSME sector. The first aspect is that many of them are still not registered under the Udyam portal. So if you look at the statistic, the numbers which you're quoting are very different from the ones which are actually there registered. So I think probably the industry, academia, we should do some bit of more training efforts are required, and outreach program is required so that they all get formalized and come into the Udyam portal. That's the first and foremost thing which I would be sort of suggesting. We also are noticed post-COVID that the China alone strategy, which most of the global players have, went through a drastic change, and it's now become China plus one. And if we, and what our, I think, Honorable Prime Minister is also trying to do, is trying to create India as an industry hub. If that has to succeed, we have to upgrade MSMEs. And that can happen only if there is, MSMEs start adopting technology, and MSMEs start doing more, they get some support on R&D. I think the prior speakers did mention the government initiatives. Government can do its part, regulators can do its part, but I think there is a greater need now for the private sector to start coming in. The second aspect is, I think, again, Dr. Ramchandran spoke about, and Dr. Mirchandani also spoke about, that the large corporates are supporting some of these SMEs. It's very true, and that is the supply chain which we are talking of. Today, if you look at it typically, on an average, probably 30% of the financing requirements are for capex, and remaining 70% would be, 70 to 80% would be for working capital. And that's where I think most of these MSMEs are struggling. The reason being, and I don't mind taking the blame, we bankers don't understand cash flow financing. And what is essentially required here, and what is actually done well in the West, is the supply chain financing part. Now you have an anchor, a large corporate like the Tata Group or the Mahindra Group, etc., and you have many of these MSMEs supplying. So basically, if you look at any trade transaction, it is a performance risk and a payment risk. The performance risk is on the MSME, and the payment risk is on the large corporate. So there are ample structured trade finance solutions which can be built in, and slowly banks are realizing the potential of this. Of course, government itself has come on many of the mandates it has given through the e-trades platform, etc. So my initial thought process is that probably before we reach the R&D stage, we need to give them support in terms of financing, make them reach there. And for the ESG side, we have to look at the transition financing. Again, it's a cost of financing which who will bear it. I think that those are the important points which we'll have to sort of look into. Thanks.
Great points. I mean, specifically the point about awareness amongst MSMEs for all the kind of support systems, either from the government or other institutions that exist. I think this is a very important point, because many of us in the companies actually know that, you have to pay within 45 days if they are registered. If they're not, there is another payment term. I'm not sure. But I think the point that you make about, 70%, working capital, 30% capex, where is the money for R&D? And that's a big question. But can we really wait for them to get all the act right before they start investing? Will we miss the boat is the big question that we need to also kind of discuss. And maybe we'll come back to that. And before that, Dr. Palak Seth, over to you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I work with Reliance in setting up a new institute called Geo Institute. Before that, I built Pandit Deen Dayal Energy University in Gujarat, and also worked for Government of Gujarat for 11 years. So my perspective is more like how to catalyze R&D for MSME. So MSME definitely builds a very strong pillar of an economy. And I have seen very closely MSME in Gujarat, who is very vibrant, very proactive, always wanted to grow, always more aggressive than many other places. The only one thing which has has not helped MSME is a nature of a competition among them together. So the one of the best solution for MSME for R&D is they have to consider is a Amul movement. Because, when individual milk supplier were not succeeding, they made Amul as a cooperative movement. And that's how they have built excellent supply of milk to every household. And it has succeeded because that has brought a cooperative mindset. So as far as R&D is concerned in MSME, can only be built when they think that future of competition is collaboration. And that's where I think they need to gather and build certain areas R&D centers for them, for their common benefit. And how this R&D center can be successful, again it can only be successful when it is a part of an academia. Because it has to be housed at one common place which is considered to be a neutral. Otherwise a small industry again gets into the mindset of fighting with each other, that it is being treated with a biasness. Now academia how will get benefited, because today this to happen, academia also need to change because everybody wants to only publish. Only publish research is not going to help or not going to change beyond a point except at a fundamental or theoretical research. So most of the institution need to go into that applied research, and when it is an applied research which can be useful to your immediate industry, that can bring the relevant research environment. So in that way academia can become relevant to the industry. Industry would also not mind to fund as well as give a support, because there is something coming out of this institution which is going to benefit them and grow them. Because most of them have gone through this academic system today. They know nothing happens actually in R&D. So I think academia need to change the mindset for building R&D of applied and useful R&D. Industry also start incentivizing people who do that research, and definitely a cooperative movement. I'll just end with a small example. Both, I think, one of the speaker in inauguration spoke about German model of cooperative center. Similar way, Australia also has a cooperative research center which has been housed in one or other institution, supported by large corporation, however, access to the all MSME. So such kind of model need to be developed both at an institution level, as a government of India level, as well as respective state government level. And definitely it is the worth to try this kind of way where everybody have, academia is a win-win, R&D is also win, and industry is also win. Thank you.
Dr. Palak, I just wanted to, you made a great point about academia having to shift from the mindset of publishing. And I think Professor Yadav made a great point this morning about this mantra of first patent, publish, and then prosper, right? I think that needs to be the mantra in the academic community from now on. And ICT is a great example of how with that mantra they have succeeded so well producing entrepreneurs. Now I do have one question for you. In your experience with MSMEs, what is the awareness of the imminent danger that many of them would face because of the rapid changes in the technology that is happening? And if they don't adopt some of these requirements, that they will actually probably not exist in another, at least not in the next generation. Have you, what are your thoughts? Is the awareness there?
So I think what I'm observing, because sometimes we deal with the students also, industry also, MSME also. So, failure has become equal part of life as success. Because everybody is failing in everything, because nobody can match the pace of change. As a parent, sometimes we feel we are failing because children is going in different direction. As an institution, we feel the students are going in a very different direction. So MSME, as a business also, we have to have only a value of resilience. With the pace of change and the change, if you closely observe startup ecosystem, everybody only talk about the big successful startup, but how many fails? There is no count on it. So the resilience is the only thing that can only be bring brought by the continuous training, because there is no other way. Today you use AI and ML technology, that is really definitely benefiting it. But assume that tomorrow as quantum computing become functional, the pace of AI and ML will be at a different tangent itself. That itself will change many industries. So the change pace is so fast, so MSME only can do two things. One is success, give equal weightage to success as well as failure. It's a passing phase. Number two, continually train yourself, your people, and your business model. That is the second thing. And third, definitely with a nation wanted to become a 40 trillion country by 2047. So they need to innovate, invent, and apply that new technology and new solution with an R&D kind of activity. That only can give a competitive advantage. Otherwise, we are in a race today where you are even standing, for 10 seconds, you are behind the race because everybody is running. It's not about how much your speed is there. It is also about that everybody is running, so you have to run. So that's the way. So we are in a very complex business, economic and societal environment, but we have to sail through. As a human being, we have always won all this race, including climate change and sustainability, and we will win over.
Great, okay. So I think, there are some great insights for where to summarize the point that you made about, big players being sources of problem definition, then scaling things, and the point that you made about, awareness, creating better awareness with MSMEs, and you pointed out one of the big barriers in academia, collaboration, and also the need for MSMEs to come up with cooperative approach. So these are some great points in the limited time that we had. I know that, we're kind of pressed for time, but I must give an opportunity for the audience here. If you have any pressing question to these very distinguished panelists, please raise your hands and we'll get a mic to you. Anybody? I think they're all tired, I think, and hungry. Oh, there is a question. Yes, please. Yeah. Can we get...
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for such an insightful session. Sir, my name is Dr. Radhika Kotecha. I represent academia, and over the last 5 years, I have been heading the Information Technology Department. As you very rightly pointed out that with the changing scenario, so sir, we, along with my students, my team, we are focusing on innovation in every aspect. And we're making sure that all our students have that notch of innovation. We have been working for a large number of live collaborative projects, a large number of which addresses MSMEs, the higher scale industries. We have been precisely developing around 38 projects for the society in the last 5 years, and particularly 8 of them which I undertake even today. Sir, my concern is that while we look forward to collaborate with MSMEs, there is a specific mindset among students where they want to go for research in large industries. MSMEs are not their first choice. So this can be a wonderful platform where we can get an awareness and opportunity of how MSMEs are looking forward to collaborate with academia, to utilize the research that happens at undergraduate levels also, and how the entire trends are changing. So my question to maybe sir or any of the panel members is, how open is MSMEs for collaborations with academia, especially given some budget constraints in MSMEs, internal promotions, recruiting externally, and taking up technologies for their organization's enhancement?
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
sir.
think we got it. Anyone want to respond?
Thanks for that. I think the MSMEs also are looking for people to innovate, and they may not be able to afford taking innovators onto their roles. So what I'll give an example. In fact, I also head Confederation of Indian Industries, Young Indians, and four of us past national chairs have actually put together a foundation called Cultino, which is basically crowdsourcing innovative ideas from exactly students like the ones that you are mentoring. So what we have is we have MSMEs who put up their problem statements onto the cultino.in platform, offer that, there's a platform that we enable where you can actually put the ideas in place. We've put a set of prototyping laboratories where not only ideas take place, but you can actually take it into a working model stage, because we find that's a huge gap between idea to enterprise is prototyping. We've enabled that through a set of 4 network laboratories where people can take the ideas, get it prototyped. All of this is happening on a pay-per-use model, which basically means that an MSME is not paying a horrendously large amount of money. Of course, the end point of this is that if the idea gets into the MSME's enterprise, then the innovator is absorbed by the enterprise. But it is a success fee, right? It is part of a success model. So look at cultino.in. We've been working with the CII to actually promote this in CII network institutions. One of them is Somaya themselves. You are a network institution of CII's Young Indians. We're very happy to look at how your students could look at cultino.in, and we can have MSMEs who've already put up their problem statements work closely with you.
Okay, so that will be a great opportunity. In just continuation with it, a small more inquiry. So we already have a large setup of solutions which we have made for the industry. So is it that we need to work for the problem statements that are raised, or we can add our own value to the MSMEs?
You could see, the idea is that, I think that's the problem, is that most of us innovate in the lab without access to market. We've actually built Cultino just to flip this on the head, and we're telling innovators a market is ready. Right? But yes, if you have people who have built ideas, there is no reason why we cannot enable a set of people from those sectors who can come and look at those ideas and absorb them into their enterprise. But here you're looking at the chicken and egg situation. What we certainly believe is that if you actually get the problem statement to the innovator and tell them now work around this problem, you will have a much better access to market. But the other way is, if you've done it,
yes.
I mean, I'm happy to work with the Mumbai chapter to enable that somebody comes and has a look at those.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I think that is a critical point from the academia, the need to be very close to the industry, what's happening. Otherwise, we often end up creating solutions for problems that don't exist, right? And that is a very, very important point. And this is where the forums like this play a very, very important role in bridging that gap. So with that, any more? Otherwise, I would probably conclude at this point. Thank the panelists for all your insights. They would be available for lunch if you have any specific questions. Madam, shall we close? Yeah, thanks.
Panelists, it was really an honor to have you on the dais for this discussion. I request Dr. Nandakumar Gilke, Registrar, Somaya Vidyavihar University, to felicitate our illustrious panelists and the moderator with a memento as a token of gratitude. I sincerely acknowledge the invaluable contribution of our esteemed moderator and the panelists in this session of Trio Conclave. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind gesture. Thank you, dignitaries. Now it's time for the lunch break. I would like to request all the dignitaries to move to the placement cell and the delegates to the room A225. We'll resume here within half an hour so that we can commence with the next session. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Parth.
My name is Celesta.
My name is Dimanta.
So I am Swayam Kudai. I am Anurag Tripathi.
So my name is Raj Devani.
I am Dr. Supriya Rai.
I am Dr. Pooja Birwatkar.
I am Professor V. Rajshekharan Pillai, Vice Chancellor of Somaya Vidya Vigar University.